Hello there, or welcome back to the Codex. So today I want to discuss the new throwing secondary weapon, which is called the Scyotid, I think? Scyotid? Who knows? I don't know how you say it. I just know that it's really fun. Before we show any builds or anything, though, I do want to talk about how this weapon actually works, just to clear up some confusion. So if you read the trait here, it says, Alternate Fire lobs a webbed snare that damages, paralyzes, and groups up to 8 enemies within 15 meters, which is incredible, by the way. The number of enemies afflicted is multiplied by multi-shot. Now, when it says it's multiplied by multi-shot, this weapon has an innate multi-shot of 4, which for some people it confuses them into thinking, oh, okay, so this starts out at 32 enemies. No, that's not what this means. This is not multiplied by the weapon's innate base multi-shot. When it says that it's multiplied by multi-shot, it means that it's multiplied by your additional multi-shot percentage that you add from mods. So right now, for example, with nothing on, if I go out to these 20 guys here and use the alt fire, it's only going to group, as you can see, 8 of them. But if I go back to the arsenal, and just to make the math really easy, if I put on a rank 4 barrel diffusion, which adds exactly 100% multi-shot, that will double, basically, the amount of people it can link to. So it's going to be 16 people instead of 8. Let's just go ahead and prove that real quickly here. Jump up, throw out the alt fire. And as you can see, everybody except 4 of them, because there's 20 guys, so we got 16 guys, was affected. So basically, just convert the percentage of multi-shot into a percentage increase for the amount of enemies that you're able to link to, which means that this can group, realistically, as many people as will ever actually matter. Because, for example, even if you just wanted to use this as a grouping build and not for actual damage, just between barrel diffusion, and in my case, I'm even only using the 110% instead of the 120%, because I'm using amalgam barrel diffusion instead of regular barrel diffusion because I like the dodge speed. Because in my opinion, if you're going to use a utility setup like this, you might as well also get the extra dodge speed. Just this plus Lethal Torrent allows you to link to over 20 enemies, and we're also using a viral electric build, which means that we can benefit, if you want to, from conjunction voltage, which makes it so that on electric stats effect, you get increased reload speed and increased multi-shot. Increasing that multi-shot further means that you could link into even more enemies. So you can literally link to 30 plus guys. And this isn't even accounting for the galvanized diffusion build, which we'll talk about in a moment here, the full damage build. Even if you only want to use this for priming, this does have some very good uses. One of the main Warframes that really loves this weapon is Protea, because Protea loves enemies being clumped up so that her blaze artillery can absolutely shred them, as you'll see right here. Because now it can stack its multiplier ridiculously fast. In fact, so fast that let me summon even more guys, clump them up again, and they all instantaneously die, basically. Yeah, just infinite heat procs. Instantly 100 heat procs. Your blaze artillery get a super high multiplier. It's incredible on Protea. If you like playing Protea basically ever, you need to be using the Scyotid as her secondary because it is fantastic. Another thing that really likes this is melee builds, of course. You can clump guys up, and I'm using the new Thals here, for example. Let's go ahead and clump everybody. And especially if you're using a heavy attack build, for example, you could just heavy attack into the crowd and instantly kill everybody, basically. Like so. Absolutely incredible utility, both for Warframes and for melees. Or, just making a AoE weapon, for example, like an AoE that is less than 15 meters, which is most AoEs in the game. You can drag them into a tighter area with the Scyotid and then blow them all up. So there's a whole lot of uses for this. However, I do think that you should actually also try this weapon as an actual damaging weapon. I'm going a blast build here, blast with Innervate. This does actually have very good fire rate. Let's go ahead and put my companion back on. Very good fire rate and good damage, especially if you are using a companion that can give you, for example, both reinforced spawn for the fire rate and tenacious spawn for that extra free crit multiplier. These actually go out very fast. And now these have even more multi-shot thanks to galvanized diffusion, so you really can link a truly absurd amount of guys. The build that I've gone for it here is, in trying to be synergistic with the grouping capability of the Scyotid, I've gone for a blast build because since you can group a ton of enemies all clumped up together in one location, having a few really high power blast procs go off is going to mean that you're basically going to detonate the entire group of enemies. And then especially when you pair a blast with Innervate, you're constantly hitting those orange crits and occasionally even red crits due to some unique blast interactions with Innervate. Let's go ahead and show this off real quick here, and I will, of course, go into a real mission and show this as well. Of course, the first couple kills are going to be a little bit slower because I got to get those galvanized stacks going. But once you, as you can see here, get everything stacked up, the damage is absolutely absurd. And again, just to show, these are Steel Path, level 230, fully armored, corrupted heavy gunners. And we'll talk about the build more in depth in just a moment here. Yeah, you just group them all up, go for some headshots, and basically just annihilate the entire crowd. And this is without any Warframe buffs also. So realistically, you're going to do even better damage than this if you're playing as somebody that has Nourish or Roar or any kind of base damage buff, anything that affects the damage of the Scyotid, you'll see even better performance than you're seeing here. Now, going back over the actual build here, you might be confused by the fact that I'm running both Galvanized Shot and Hornet Strike. The reason for this is because I'm running Innervate, which means that I'm not running a base damage arcane, and even though I'm running Galvanized Shot, this build only has 3 distinct damage types, which is only 360% base damage, which isn't as much as I would like. Now, of course, if you're running like a Panzer, for example, you can reliably have at least an extra viral proc on somebody fairly commonly, so that's a 4th additional status type, so that's another 120% base damage. But a Hornet Strike giving us that upfront and always active 220% base damage. For one, it makes the blast proc stronger, because blast procs scale with base damage, and it also makes these startup kills not take so long because you already have some base damage that isn't only conditionally activated from kills. There's a few other good options here though, especially if you were playing as a frame that gives you a nice damage buff, like a Chroma, for example, giving you a lot of base damage. You could drop this and maybe run something like Merciless Gunfight, because again, since you group enemies up, the punch through would actually be very effective because you could be hitting multiple guys at once. You could also consider running Prime Teeter Charge, for example. You could run an Expel mod. There's multiple options that you could run. If you wanted to go for a Blast Corrosive build, you could put maybe Prime Convulsion or Jolt here. A whole lot of options. This weapon is fairly flexible, and I really enjoy it. It's actually very good. Let's go ahead and hop into a mission here and showcase a combination of both using this as a grouping tool and as a way to enhance your other weapons damage thanks to the grouping. Alright, here we are in a Steel Path Conjunction Survival, per usual. As you can see, if I group enemies up here, they get annihilated real fast thanks to sharing those blast procs to so many tightly packed enemies. And just as an example of playing as a frame that has an additional buff to throw on top of these, if I activate Roar here, Roar is a especially good buff for a blast build, since Roar is actually calculated as a faction multiplier, which means that it gets the same benefit of applying twice, multiplicatively, to status damage. So it makes these blast procs do monumentally more damage than you would usually see. So if you really want to juice them up, play as somebody with Roar, for example. And now let's go ahead and clump these guys up and see that the melee, of course, greatly benefits from this as well, by being able to hit so many guys at once, especially if you use those free TennoCreate heavy attacks, which are a whole lot of damage on clumped up enemies. Right now I'm using a melee Afflictions Phallus build, so I'm getting a whole lot of electric procs. And as you can see, we do not have a hard time at all killing enemies. Let's get that Roar back on. Now do know that if you see an Xmas enemy, Xmas enemies, or anybody rather that has Overguard on them, is going to be immune to the pooling effect. So if you want to group those kind of enemies up like this guy right here, you would first have to get his Overguard off, and then you would be able to clump him up. So you're not going to be able to clump absolutely everybody, but most of the enemies are not going to be Xmas, so you'll still primarily get the benefit. Again, let's just show that one more time. I'll go ahead and skip ahead to showing the performance of this build's damage against an Acolyte. That way, that's probably one of the last things you want to see here, just to know how good it really is. Alright, here comes an Acolyte, and just so you don't have to watch me struggle to aim with this weapon, I switched over to a build using Cores and Snare. That way we can just see the damage it's able to put out. There we go. And as you can see, it's no instant Acolyte killer, but like most weapons in the game, it'll get the job done if you absolutely need it to. It's probably a better idea to bring a melee or something that's more well-suited for instantly killing Acolytes if you want that real speed of killing them. But like I said, for killing the mass majority of enemies like right here, it's very fun to just clump them all up and then detonate them with these blast procs. So overall, I think it's a fun weapon. I think it's both a good utility weapon and good at actually killing, which is, of course, a pretty fun combination. I am actually surprised that they made the grouping 15 meters instead of 10 meters. 15 meters seems like a pretty powerful pocket grouping tool to just be able to have on any Warframe. Like I said, especially Protea. So yeah, I like it. You guys can let me know down below. What do you think of the weapon? Do you plan on using it? Do you have any other interesting uses for it that maybe I didn't think of? I always look forward to your feedback. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.